Alrighty, good morning. How's everyone doing? It's a little bright, but that's okay. It's like, yes, good. Thank you, thank God, right? Good morning, my name is Natalie Cantave. I'm a marketing manager at a fintech startup called Estatably. We're a B2B legal tech and fintech startup that really digitizes trust and estate administration processes with the goal of preserving financial legacies, preventing family disputes, and stopping assets from falling under court control. So that typically means like probate, etc. And I will be your moderator for this panel. I'm very excited to bring up our panel. So here's a little bit about them. And I guess as I introduce you guys, just come up on stage. So first we have Sylvia Singleton. Her professional career spans over 2 decades, marked by key roles in various sectors, including the corporate, public, and wealth management sectors. She transitioned into academia, most recently holding a position at Suffolk University as a professor and director of Master of Science in Taxation. Her work included overseeing a faculty team composed of attorneys, tax experts, and financial advisors from Boston's premier financial firms, the IRS and State Street. She currently works at her firm, Singleton Wealth, where she has been instrumental in guiding entrepreneurs toward achieving their financial goals. Welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you, everyone.
Up next, we have Patience Noah. She's the owner of Patience Noah Insurance, an independent insurance agency offering auto insurance, home insurance, business insurance, life insurance, group benefits, and surety bonds to small and mid-sized businesses. In 2021, she gained recognition in Independent Agents Magazine as a promising young agent nationwide. She was also honored by the Charles Rivers Chamber of Commerce as one of the young influential Black business leaders in Metro West. Currently, Patience is involved in nonprofit organizations such as Skills USA Massachusetts and the African Community Education Program, where she contributes to preparing students and assisting African refugees in their community integration. Welcome, Patience. And last, but certainly not least, Rodney Cornegay is a seasoned and experienced financial advisor and the founder of Cornegay Capital Group. He has worked with numerous clients to help them choose, invest, and manage plans based on their goals. As a financial advisor, Rodney's main goal is to help clients make well-informed decisions on what types of strategies are right for your situation. He also emphasizes the need to adjust them as your goals and needs change. Rodney will always listen to your concerns, share information about potential investments, and treat your financial goals with the same care and interest that he devotes to his own. Welcome, Rodney. Awesome. So this panel, for hopefully this is the right place, if you are, is building generational wealth, trust, life insurance, and long-term investments. Before diving in, just a quick housekeeping. So on your chair or in the aisle, there's a form that is just a seminar feedback form. We'd ask if you could just fill that out and give any feedback. And if you do, Rodney promises you a free t-shirt. Not breakfast, but t-shirt works too. Awesome. So we're going to dive in really quickly. So whoever wants to start with this question first, what are some of the key ways that individuals can build generational wealth? Sylvia, do you want to go first?
I think Rodney was going to take the lead on this in terms of talking about making a list of what you have.
Yeah, so I'll get started on this. Welcome everybody for being here. Just kind of looking at starting that is really just kind of putting your assets together. It's figuring out what you have. Of course, as we've seen with minority communities, they're using different types of life insurance, whether you're looking at as an asset there or just protecting what you have. Just looking at that first part of that process is just kind of seeing where your assets are and kind of making that list there and kind of getting started there. Like if you have homes, multiple homes, bank accounts, all different pieces of assets that you have there, just kind of finding out what you have there. A lot of times we're moving so fast there with just, work and children and spouse and, things like that, or our business there, that we don't actually take any time just to kind of figure out what we have first and then kind of start building the plan from there.
The next, I think, key aspect of building generational wealth is getting involved in the market in terms of investing. Additionally, there are, of course, other sources of revenues that we can, or income that we can pursue to try to help us build generational wealth. But investing is one of the key factors that I think it's very much missing in, communities of Black and Brown, where we haven't had the exposure that we need to really start building that wealth. Having home ownership, obviously, is a major component, and the most traditional foundation of how we have built assets throughout our lifetimes. But if you were in the prior conversation in the main session, you would know that because of redlining, people of color have not had sufficient, access, right? We have been marginalized, and we have not been able to build that wealth as traditionally through home ownership we would have done. But we've also have not been able to start building wealth through investing. So we're sort of in this two-way fashion, we have limited our potential to build wealth, and we need to focus on that. How do we build assets such as in that real estate arena now that we have more access? But even more importantly, how do we build wealth long-term via our investment strategies?
Patience?
Yeah. So I want to touch on building wealth through your companies, right? So a lot of people are building companies these days. They have their side hustles and things like that. But a lot of people are not insuring that, right? You're not protecting that. And one of the things that I always tell people is, okay, well, you're protecting this aspect of your life, you're protecting your home. How are you protecting your business? It only takes one lawsuit for everything you've been building for years to go down the drain, right? And I come across a lot of small business owners or a lot of minority businesses that don't take the insurance or insuring their business as an important piece of that building of wealth. And I will touch a little bit more on that as we go into this panel. But yeah, it's another way to build wealth and protect your assets as well.
Yeah, so a lot of, building generational wealth, and everyone pretty much touched on, is really protecting your assets. So I had the statistic, which is pretty frightening, I guess, but 70% of Black Americans do not have a will. I know for me something that's personal. My grandmother passed away 3 years ago, and she had a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn for over 40 years. And that could have been an asset that went to my mom and her siblings, or myself and my other cousins. And because she didn't have that, we unfortunately lost it. Right, so even that, from just a home ownership perspective, could have been generational wealth. So for Rodney and Sylvia, what does it mean to have a will or living trust in place, and why is it important? Rodney, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so of course, those two documents there, you do need an attorney to set those up there, at least to start that conversation and kind of figure out what you want to do. So of course, the will, looking at that piece, just a legal document that kind of spells out who do you want your assets to go to there. The trust, there's more looking at now that I have whatever assets that I have at that point in time. So, tax IDs involved with that. So that actually guarantees that those assets go to that person there. So always when I look at some of those things there, I look at a will as kind of like, I hope this passes to my family there. With a trust, it is going to pass to your family there. And then you're just kind of looking at, okay, how much taxes is my family going to pay, or is it going to go directly to them?
I'll speak a little bit in terms of the distinction, I guess, between the will and the trust option. When we're talking about the will, as Rodney stated, it is a written legal document. That legal document also gets filed with the probate court, and that's how it is legally recognized. So you do detail all of the information in terms of what your assets are, who the heirs are, how you want those distributions to be made to them upon your death, and that has legal standing. In the case of a trust, it does establish a separate entity, but there are many different types of trusts. There are trusts that you could still own and have controllership over, and those trusts, the income that's generated from any property that you place into that trust is reported by you on your personal tax return. Yet when you die, that particular asset will flow through to whoever your heirs are as your beneficiaries. The major distinction between the two to keep in mind is that when you have a will, you do have that public notice because it is available at the probate court, versus when you have a trust, that's something that you could keep in secret. It does not have to actually be made part of the public record. So a lot of individuals who maybe have some turmoil within their families or other relationships may decide to go the trust option versus the will option. They both are protective in nature. The one point that could make it difficult for either of those two types of vehicles is that if you have someone who is a beneficiary or someone that you left out intentionally, did not want to be a beneficiary, you want to make sure that you make note, that you note those people in that will or within that trust and specifically state that you intend for them not to have something. Because then they have the opportunity to come forward and say to the court, you know what, I think they left me out by accident or someone influenced that person and that's why I'm not getting something. And they can actually challenge your will or your trust, which means that you could have to spend, or your heirs will have to spend years waiting to try to see what the court decides. So it's very important to think about that when we're thinking about wills and trust. Additionally, there are tax benefits to one versus the other, and I just want to give an example only because I see this so much in our community, so if you wouldn't mind, just give me a moment. I've had individuals who own homes, and they turn around and rather than wait to the time of death and use a will or use a trust to leave that home to a family member, they decide, you know what, the best way to protect it is that you're going to go on the mortgage with me and you're going to be on the deed with me, and now, this is how you're going to own it. That's an issue from a tax perspective, potentially, because you can expose, upon the death, that transaction to tax, versus if you waited for the person to inherit that through the will or through the trust, then there's less of a tax implication. There's actually no tax exposure because of something that's called step up in basis, which means as of the date of your death, that property is going to be valued at the fair market value as that date. So if you bought a home 4 decades ago, like my mother-in-law, for $30,000, and her home in Dorchester is now worth $1.3 million, well, guess what? When she were to die tomorrow, we don't want that to happen. She loves me and I love her, but as an example, when she leaves that to her children, right? If she had put it and turned around and just put them on the mortgage, well, now they have the same basis that she had, which was the $30,000 versus the $1.3 million. So if they wanted to sell it tomorrow, they could literally walk away without having to pay any tax at the federal level and have limited exposure at the state level. So thinking about how we do these transactions is very important, and making sure that we seek financial advice when we're trying to make those decisions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Patience?
Yeah, so one of the things, what I want to touch on is that a lot of young people think you have to be older, right, to put these things in place, or maybe marry and X, Y, and Z. One thing that I do want to encourage every young person in the room is start taking those actions now, right? Don't wait until it's too late. Sometimes, most of the time, it's too late when you're thinking about it. So if you are doing it now, if you're starting a business or whatever it is you're doing now, is the right time to start putting a will or a trust in place so that you have a clear direction as to where you want it to go if something were to happen to you.
Yeah, and a question for you specifically, Patience. I know probably sometimes, I remember my first job after college, I saw life insurance as a benefit, and I was like, I don't really need this. What is this? Versus my sister was like, so I'm going to get all this money? And I was like, do you want me to die tomorrow? And she was like, no, but I'm saying, put it under my name. But what does it mean to also have insurance, life insurance, auto insurance, home insurance? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, most definitely. So life insurance, I feel like, is a lot of things that our community has been sold to our community as something that you can use for death, right? So it's associated with death. And that's the narrative that's been passed down in our community. But when I got into the business, you can use life insurance for so many things. And for me, I'm just going to touch on the key man or the key owner life insurance policies. And I'm sure Sylvia and Rodney are going to touch on the others. So the key man, basically, me as a business owner, as a key person in my agency, I have a life insurance product. For me, I chose the IUL, the Indexed Universal Life Insurance product, because I want to use that as an investment tool, an investment vehicle, so that few years from now, if I do need to borrow against it, I can take money from it and do whatever I need to do with that in the next however years, I want to do that with. So that's just one aspect of life insurance, right? But then when we get into business insurance, there's just so much that your business insurance can do for you that a lot of people have no idea. And one of the questions that I ask people when they come across me, did you have business insurance before the pandemic? And then they'll say, yes, I did. Okay, during the pandemic, were you shut down? Yes, I was. Okay, did you reach out to your insurance company to tell them about your lost income or any expenses you may have incurred during the time you were shut down? And then they're like, wait, what are you talking about, right? So these are all things that your business insurance could do for you. Your business insurance is not only insuring your liability, it's insuring your revenue, it's insuring the income that you should have gained during the time that you have your business insurance active. So don't say, okay, well, you know what, my business is not making that much money, no, start insuring your business from an earlier on. And then as you're growing, right, find an agent, find somebody that you trust, right, so that as you're growing every year, as you renew, so that they can talk to you about the changes that are happening within your business, right? So that you can insure your business as you go along. Okay, fine, you don't have employees right now, that's fine. Maybe you don't need workman's comp, right? You just need general liability or professional liability, depending on what you're doing, right? But find someone who can advise you as you grow, and then you too, again, you're putting things in place that if anything goes wrong, you're protected.
Yeah, thank you for that. And we have some great advisors on stage doing a plug for them. So make sure you get in contact with them afterwards. So to continue the conversation, and Sylvia, I'll ask you to answer this first. How does one start the development of an estate plan? And how can someone determine how assets are distributed?
I think we go back to what Ronnie mentioned. It's really, we start off by making a list. What do you actually have currently? What might be even coming to you, right? So not just think about what you have, but if you have parents or other, uncles, aunts, grandparents that are potentially leaving something to you, you want to account for that as well. So you're having a full list of all of your assets. Then you're taking from that perspective. Now you're thinking about, well, who are your potential heirs that you want to inherit property from you? You're thinking about, what do you want to leave them? And you want to be very specific in those details. You also want to, sort of a next step, think about a healthcare proxy. I think that should be a part of your plan, because if you are not capable to make decisions for yourself because it's a medical condition, you want to make sure that you have someone established who will be legally recognized. So make sure that you also do have that document. And from there, I would, always recommend that you speak with, obviously, an attorney. That attorney can help you write the will. The attorney can help you write the trust if that is your option. The attorney can also serve as the individual who will make sure that what you are looking for, what your intentions are, actually follow through. So helping with those distributions of those assets and property as when the time comes, as well as if you don't want to use an attorney to do that specific part of it, you can just name an executor or an executrix, someone whom you trust, who will serve that function. So that's a part of it. Rodney, you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I would just say really the only other thing would be kind of looking at that power of attorney. So like as she was saying there, Sylvia, they're just looking at who's going to make decisions for you if you can't. So understanding that. So I know a lot of times if we're looking at children and things like that, we all have that child there who's the spendthrift there, who's going to spend down the money. So you have to understand if that's your power of attorney there, they may not have your best interest there. So you want to make sure that that person, has your best interest there if something happened. It doesn't mean about age there, just because, of course, in my line of work there, you could be in your 30s, you could be in your 20s, and now understanding who's that power of attorney there, who's going to make decisions for the rest of your life, and understanding that piece there.
Yeah.
And there is one more thing I want to know.
No, go ahead.
Ronnie had me thinking about something. I want to sort of step a little bit back to talk about our wills and our trust. And when we're talking about those assets, it's very important to keep in mind that if you have a retirement plan, such as a 401k or, a self-employed plan, if you're a self-employed individual, that remember that when you fill out those forms, they're requiring you to list your beneficiaries. Those beneficiaries in the eyes of the law will be recognized prior to your will or your trust. So you need to make sure that you're reviewing these documents and making sure that you're also thinking about who did I write down on that 401k, who has access to that, because if those two things are conflicting, the law is going to go with who you actually established under that particular plan. So making sure that you revisit that at least every, I recommend always every 3 years, but whenever there's a major change, however long that is, it might be year to year, you don't want this person to be on your 401k. Remember that if whoever's in the will, you want to make sure that that all matches so that in the end you get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah, I actually want to add on to something that Rodney mentioned and switch the order of the questions on y'all. I'm sorry. But I really want to lean into this point of, right, whatever it is for building generational wealth and protecting your assets really starts with having the conversations. They're typically not conversations that we have in our homes in the Black community. And we need to start having these conversations. So Patience, I'm going to have you start first. How do you think we can start having these conversations in homes, or even, we're here today having it, but how does that start?
So it start basically when you're young, right? And I always say that your parents or your family or your first teacher before you get into the schools, right? And it starts with every parent in here. So I, about 2 weeks ago, this lady in my church, she came to me and she was showing me some games that she got for her son. I think he's about 9 or 10. And she got it, is about saving. It has a piggy bank for savings. It has a piggy bank for offering, and it has a piggy bank for leisure. Right? So she's starting from a very young age how he should allocate his money, right? So that's a conversation that she's educating her son. So I am pretty sure by the time this young man is probably 15, 16, 17, his understanding of money, right? His understanding of wealth is going to be much different from anyone else's age, right? And then I actually went as far as having an event, and I gave him a microphone, and we built a vision board, and he had to explain his vision board. And for his age, talking about building wealth and building assets and things like that at the age of 8 is just something that he couldn't have learned from TV, right? His mother must have been teaching him that. So again, it's incumbent upon every parent in here, don't just put an iPad in front of your kid. Let it be an iPad that's teaching them something about, finances from a young age and things like that. So I'm going to stop there and let the rest.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely important to start young. But Sylvia, Rodney, how do you encourage the folks that you work with to start having these conversations, or what advice would you give to everyone here?
Well, I would say, of course, right now we've all benefited from social media, from TikTok. You have influencers who are putting out there about talking about your finances, whether you're using life insurance as an asset or investing and things like that. I think that's a good start to the conversation. But then from there, I've seen that now the minority communities, of course, underserved, have started just researching there. Now that you see the TikTok video, now you're looking at what whole life is, what indexed universal life is, what variable universal life is, how does term insurance work, how does my 401k work, how can I invest, through different companies there. So the research is the biggest thing. And then from there, being able to ask whoever your advisor is, whoever that person is, that you're able to ask them those questions there, and you're able to be frank and open with them there, saying, hey, I don't completely understand this, how does this work, what is this, the charges on this, what is the cost, what are your fees, understanding that and kind of starting those conversations, and then kind of trickling that down if you do have children, and saying, hey, I had this conversation with my advisor and we were looking at some fees that I'm paying on this and that. There, you're having those small conversations. You don't, of course, with your children, you don't need to have every single financial conversation that, hey, this is what the mortgage costs and things like that, but they're understanding that there is a mortgage there, that you are paying rent there, that there are bills that are getting paid, and you're kind of having those. But I think just the social media has kind of opened up the conversation. I know I've definitely benefited from it as an advisor. I have people sending me videos all the time saying, hey, what about this? Are we able to do this? Are we able to put, the new one now is put insurance on the oldest, adult there. Now when an older adult passes away, everybody in the family benefits. That's great for the family, but that older adult probably doesn't really like that.
Yeah, Sylvia, anything you want to comment to, or?
No, I think the point of education is very important. I'm an educator at heart, so I like to use resources that I know very well recognized. And there's a resource out there called morningstar.com where you can go out and you can actually be online and take some online courses. They're absolutely free. You can learn everything that you want to know about stocks and bonds and all of the different opportunities that are out there from an investment perspective. So that's something I think it's key. Key is education, and of course, the main part of that is, as was said earlier, that we need to start early. You know, I grew up in a household where we talked about religion, we talked about baseball, and we talked about politics. We never talked about wealth. And both of my parents never ever owned a home. And I was able to put myself through college. They weren't able to pay for me to go to college. I did it myself, and I've been able to develop wealth. But I didn't have any exposure to that. And we limit ourselves so much in the next generations by not providing any exposure because we ourselves have not been exposed and we ourselves are not educated. So education is key. And I just want to make one point about when you select an advisor, make sure that you can ask that advisor a question. If you feel uncomfortable asking your advisor any question, that advisor is not the one for you.
So can I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So I actually had a friend. I have a friend that last night, consistently for the past 4 months, he's been telling me, oh, I'm always broke. Right? And mind you, one of the smartest kid making a lot of money, but he's always talking about being broke. So last night, I had just had it. I think I was out here for too long yesterday. So I asked him, I was like, who's managing your money? And then he was like, oh, I do that myself. I don't have time for this, for these things. Politely, I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to tell you something. I don't want you to be offended, but I'm tired of you talking about being broke. And I didn't even say respectfully. I did not say that. I didn't say that. But I was just like, so, because he's a professor, so I told him, I said, you're a professor because you're good at what you do, right? And you have the education to do what you do. You don't have the education to manage money. So go to someone who has the education and let them educate you. And he's talking about buying a car. He wants to buy a Lexus versus buy a Toyota, because I told him, I said, okay, so instead of buying a Lexus right now, you don't have the money for that. Why don't you buy a Toyota and pay the whole thing off so that in 3 years, because you said you want to be able to buy a house, so that you can save up for the house that you want to buy in 3 years. So I told him, I said, okay, why don't you go to your bank and ask your bank to either assign a financial advisor to you, or go to whoever you have your 401k with and ask them to assign a financial advisor to you. Or you can get somebody outside of that and make sure you get at least 3 people, you talk to them, make sure you're comfortable with them so you can ask them questions, date them, date your financial advisor, make sure you can connect with them before going with one of them. So he kept me up all night last night, so I was literally, so that was the conversation we were having last night.
Yeah, but it's a super important, conversation to talk about finances, even though it is uncomfortable. So again, kind of pivoting, how can folks find a financial advisor that they trust? Rodney, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say sometimes it starts with the company that you're kind of working with there already. So they may have, could be the bank, it could be your 401k. From there, they may have people that you can refer to. Myself, I'm 100% referral basis there, from clients there. So part of that is, are you able to ask them the questions that you wouldn't normally ask? Part of that, do you have their cell phone number if there's an emergency? I always talk to people about that. If your advisor doesn't respond to you until after 5:30, means they probably have a regular job during the day. They're probably doing this part-time. You know, you want somebody who's full-time, who's worried about your finances singularly, that they're not making a decision for you, that they're doing for everybody. Your plan should be your plan. It should be your goals, that you're understanding, like, what are the steps to get to those goals there. It may be rocky at times there, but you're understanding that, hey, we still have a longer goal or a shorter goal depending on what you're looking for there. I say that over time, that's how you build trust with some advisors there. I know sometimes you have advisors, sometimes with your attorney there, you might not have total trust with them because sometimes it's quick. Hey, I just wanted a will. I need the trust get set up. I need this. There may be quick, but your advisor is somebody you're working with over time, as well as they all should be working together. It should be your advisor, your attorney, your accountant. They should all be able to talk there about your plan and make sure everything is working together there.
Yeah, Sylvia or Patience, do you want to add to that? Oh, Sylvia.
I'll just add one thing. When it comes to looking for a financial advisor, there are resources to you online where you can go and check the advisor's credentials. I actually checked Rodney since we were going to share on the panel today. So if you
What did you find on me?
What were the receipts?
I'm not impressed.
All right, investigator. Get you a Sylvia.
he has
Good old broker check.
He has an excellent reputation. I did not find any complaints listed against him. But I just want you to know that those resources are out there. They're managed under the Securities and Exchange Commissions, which oversees all investing. You have resources out there. You're not just throwing a dart in the dark and hoping that you get someone good. Do your homework. Check their credentials first. Make sure that that relationship is strong. And like I said, that you can ask questions. Think about it. This person's going to know more about you than probably anybody knows. So make sure that it works for you.
And also, like, I would say, like, maybe ask them if you can talk to one of their clients, right? Because somebody can do a sales pitch for you, but what is the person who's actually working with them? Like, what is it like working with them? So maybe my recommendation would be ask them, hey, is there one of your clients that I can talk to, just to get more, like an idea or something like that, right? So that you can get their resume and know, because again, like I said, somebody can put anything out online, right? But you do the research and do it beyond social media or beyond what you see online.
Yeah.
And real quick there, just make sure everybody heard, Sylvia said 0 complaints there.
I did.
Zero complaints. Yeah, so I know I do want to be conscious of time because I would like to, I think, definitely leave time for folks in the audience to ask questions. But first, for all three of you, you all are very, very successful business owners, which we need to celebrate. How or what are some ways that folks can gain additional streams of income, right? Because generational wealth is not only protecting your assets, but also, maybe having your side hustles, investing. So can you touch on that? Patience, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for me, my business is my only hustle, me hustle, side hustle, all of it, right? But for those of you that are still in corporate and you're looking for extra stream of income, you can actually, realtors, right? Being a licensed realtor, even selling life insurance. There's a lot of people these days that are doing life insurance part-time and they're still making enough money to do what they need to be able to do. So there's just multiple. I'm just going to stay with those two and allow Rodney and Sylvie to add more onto it, but just in the field of insurance or in the field of getting more or whatever, getting extra income, those two I would recommend because you can balance that with your regular job.
So myself, I hate the side hustle. I think that a lot of times that we spend a lot of time on a side hustle there, unless the side hustle is going to be your full-time hustle, and you're going to start putting in the full-time into it. So a lot of times we don't realize wherever we're working there, we can progress, get our education, and move our income up there that allows us now, we have higher income that we can transition to make our side hustle full-time there. So ultimately, you want to be wherever you're at, that you have complete autonomy, that you can grow how you want to grow there, and that's how you can keep growing your income. Because sometimes your, let's say, 40-hour-a-week job there, if you keep improving your education there, you can keep moving up the ladder there. So you're still working your 40 hours, but your income is increasing over time. Or you're doing lateral changes where you're changing companies every 2 to 3 years. They're looking at those growth that you may not have at that company. You're able to do that there. But if you are going to do the side hustle, that side hustle should be something that you like doing. It should be something that you're into, that you're interested listed in there. There shouldn't be any question that you can't answer about that side hustle there. If you're doing products, do you understand what's inside of products there? If there's something that you're just offering there online there, are you able to answer those questions there? If you are going to put that time in there, because like in our field there, like Patience and Sylvia's field, like in our own businesses, the more time we put into our business, the more our business is going to keep growing from there. So I would never choose to do a side hustle outside of what I'm doing.
Yep. Production company, I don't know if this is, but I think it would be a great time for anyone who has questions to ask our amazing panelists. I don't know how to do this because it is dark as hell, but I can see some hands, so I will come up and give the mic. Oh, my legs. It's all right. I'm going to give it to you first because you are in front and I'm lazy.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for the knowledge. It's definitely something that I look forward to implement. But if you have a 401k, are there any strategies so that you don't get taxed on top of tax on top of tax if you want to remove it if you're no longer with that organization?
Yeah, so of course you're always going to pay some tax on the 401k there. So if you do leave that organization, you're probably just going to put into a personal IRA, or if you have a business, you may put in the business IRA, depending on what type you set up. But of course, if you still are with the company, if you are doing the side hustle, there are some strategies there. If you're looking at income and things that you may need to start that side hustle, where you could take the 60-day window there, take some money out there, not pay tax on it, put it back within that 60-day window there while you're still employed there, but you still will always pay some tax on it there. A lot of times what ends up happening, the longer that you keep it there, a lot of times after the tax, you end up getting your money back plus some interest that you earned over that time there, so it does still make sense for that tax deferral there. But that's part of the strategy that you have, with your accountant, kind of looking at, those tax sides there, kind of looking at that.
Questions? All right. I'm going to give. Okay.
So, just to touch base off the 14 days, $6,000 that the lady did make, I was informed that once you make over $5,000 on an annual basis, that you are taxed. How would somebody go about that? Because I have small things that I do that make me under that 5K to keep me away from being taxed.
So I'm assuming your question is, if we take the 6,000 and add your 5 to get at 11, what's the exposure there?
Yes.
There is no exposure there because the 6,000 would not be reported on a tax return. It is excluded by law, which means it does not count. So you would still be standing at 5 and not 11.
Yes, you had a question in the pink.
Yeah, I don't need it either.
All right, come through.
This question is for you, Patience. I
Okay.
know you have your expertise in all of the insurances.
Yes.
And my boyfriend and I, we've battled, more so discussed, I can say, in terms of the benefits of life insurance, because we were just even now saying that it's life insurance and it's not death insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you mind diving in a little bit more in terms of the benefits of life insurance? What are the things that we can do with it? And everything else like that.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So I will always tell this story. So when after I've decided, okay, I no longer want to go back to corporate, I am going to go into opening an agency full time. Went through the training, and then we had gone to training, and there was this girl, my age at the time. So she was sharing, because they were asking us, oh, where did you get funding from, right? She was, so she had asked, so they asked her, where did you get funding from to open your business? I was like, listen, the struggle is real. And when it was her turn, she was like, well, I took money from my life insurance. So my dad is an insurance agency owner, and when I was born, he already had a life insurance in place for me. He actually had multiple life insurance for me. So when my husband and I were ready to buy our house, we borrowed against our whole life insurance. And then when I was ready to open my business, I borrowed against my Index Universal Life Insurance. I was like, wait, what? That was the first time I was hearing that, right? So now it made me think, oh, well, I signed up for Index the following day, so I actually have 2 Index products, right? So again, like I said earlier, it's things that we are not exposed too in our community because they use us to get that quick sale, right? You have people that are looking to get that quick sale, so they want to sell that term life insurance policy to you. Term life is good if you are in a temporary situation, right? But if you're looking for a long-term investment, right, sit down with an advisor, ask them to talk to you about the different life insurance products that are out there and how you can use it while you're alive, right? Term life, you're only saying that I'm giving myself 10 years to die. And if I don't die within this period, my money goes to the insurance company, right? So you've got to look at it as, okay, well, I want to live for as long as I want, right? Or for as long as I can, right? But in that time, how can this product work for me? Right? That's the question that you should be asking yourself when it comes to life insurance, right? Don't look at it as, okay, if I die, it goes to my family members, it goes to my kids. That's great, right? But while I'm alive, how can I use this life insurance, right, to work for me? That's the question that you should be asking yourself.
Thank you.
Yes. Do you need a microphone, sir?
I don't need a microphone.
All right.
If a parent puts a house, a second house, in the child's name, the child gets an equity loan and gives the parent some money, not the value of the property, but some money, a couple $100,000. Does the parent pay a capital gains? I mean, they didn't sell the house. Do they pay a gift tax? I mean, what is the burden in terms of tax liability?
There's potentially a gift tax exposure, but you know that depending on if it's a single parent or whether it's a married filing couple, then we were talking about $22 million exclusion. So it's within that wealth, we would not have tax exposure. If the IRS was to deem it to be a transfer in terms of a sale, then there could be tax implications there. How you structure it is very important in terms of whether that is really sort of a transfer of that in terms of a loan. In that case, it would be, hey, I'm giving you the property, here's kind of a loan, and you're paying me out. You want to make sure that the interest rate is stated. You want to make sure that it's a written document and that payments are actually flowing through, which you can forgive under the annual $17,000 gift allowment that you're allowed to do that. So there's ways to work within that system to not trigger a taxable event, but it's all about how you structure the transaction.
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to know anyone on the panel's thoughts about self-funded 401ks, and if you guys feel it's advisable to take the 401ks that you have from your corporate job and put it into now a self-funded 401k. Would that be something that you would advise on?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is control. So, of course, if you leave an employer there, that employer, let's say they're changing CEOs, they're changing financial companies, your plan is going to change each time. So, of course, if you put it into a personal account or a business account there, you keep control, as well as a lot of times through the corporate accounts, they can only allot a certain amount of investments through that, versus if you're in a personal account, you can invest how you want to invest there. You know, so you're able to, let's say that company you're working with has 10,000 possible investments, you can choose between all of those there. But the biggest part is really just a control. So a lot of people, if you're looking at, we had COVID, we had companies that shut down and some that closed. If you were part of one of those companies and they had a blackout period at that point in time, you wouldn't have access to any of those funds. You would see the account, you can log in there, but you won't have until they're outside of that blackout period. So I would just say for most situations, it probably makes sense just for you to put it into that business or the personal account, just depending on situation.
Thank you to our panelists, and have a good rest of your day.